Okay, we might get started if you're ready, Chris.
Yep.
Thanks everyone for jumping on today. I was going to say this morning, but it's night time for Chris to get to know Omnidek a bit better. I'll pass you over to Chris and he can show you this incredible software. Over to you.
Very good. Thanks so much, Laura. I appreciate it. Yeah, so my name is Chris Jordan, and we founded a company called Omnidek originally, and now it's been licensed by the Sage Group as Sage Forms and Operational Flows. Hopefully that can tell you a little bit about the horsepower of the product is their desire to kind of put their label on it. This is a very unique product. It's a product that you can generally find use today in some of the gaps of your processes, but it's what I think more importantly is it's a product that strategically you can invest in for the future. And we're going to talk about a couple of terms, but one of the main things that we want to talk a little bit about is kind of a newer term, or maybe pseudo newer term called citizen developer. Citizen developer just means that you don't have to be a developer to build processes up inside of a no-code platform. There's a lot of tools out there that are fairly complex to set up. Microsoft obviously has tons of suites that kind of promise the ability to kind of connect the dots fairly easily, but you end up having to like bring in a Microsoft SharePoint developer to really kind of build anything out, especially if you want integration to your back office system. So one of the cool things really for the first time that our platform does is it really empowers this idea of, rather than having to go and look at, every time there's a fire or a work process that we want to put some automation to, we don't necessarily have to go through the vendor evaluation song and dance every single time. This can be a product just like we take an Excel spreadsheet or we take PDF or Word and kind of build our own things. It's kind of in the same vein as that, is where you can really start building your own process flows. And what makes the system unique is that it's kind of an assembly line approach to workflow. It's a single inbox where all of these processes flow through. So the average customer using our platform uses it for 18 processes. They get past the first one, and they're really free to continuously improve, is kind of the term that we use, and continuously rolling out new processes. This white paper is available for circulation if you wanted to take a look at it, but I wanted to just kind of hit on a couple of key points here. This is really a no-code toolkit is the way that we look at it. It's something that an administrative team or some operational process improvement people can take and really start kind of pinpricking the different solutions or pain points and start really driving change inside of the company, but also we're getting everybody into the platform. The idea here really is kind of like 5 E's is what we call it, the letter E. The first E is empowerment. We want to empower you to take control of your initiatives and process flows rather than having to buy all the different technology every time we have a problem. Engagement. One of the beautiful things about this platform is that you can actually invite customers and vendors and subcontractors, really any constituency that you would serve at your company. You can invite them to come into a private portal experience. And this is really a nice way to engage with your logos and your color scheme. So it feels like a very private, very expensive experience, but it's something that you can build in a few minutes. And we'll get into some examples of that. Efficiency, repetitiveness is kind of the name of the game with our software. We want people using these really less technology platforms, but more technology in general, because they're using it all through kind of the same ecosystem. These efficiencies really show up in early pay vendor discounts, real-time reporting, getting our data back in, cleaned up, no more spreadsheets, no more data entry. These are kind of the real big cost savings from there. And then obviously, consolidation is kind of the name of the game. The average company uses about 13 different add-on SaaS products for various things from task management to time to expense reporting and so on. Just reducing that down, maybe not for everything, but for some things, just to make a dent in the monthly subscriptions that we're paying can go a long way, and also help return on invest our software cost. And then really the big opportunity that we present is this idea of the great escape. For the last 20 years, when I actually first started selling software, we used to ask the IT person what's your 3-year roadmap? What's your technology roadmap? And they would have a confident answer to that question. Now we don't even have full-time IT staff. And it's generally, well, whatever so-and-so wants in their department, they get. And that piecemeal solution has created a problem called Appageddon. We kind of coined it, but it's just app overload. And the average company will churn through half of that technology stack every 2 years. And that becomes really, really chaotic, especially when you have to go back and try to pull all of my files from a project, or try to see them on an employee, but we don't use that software anymore. So now what? That's really kind of gets, can really throw some chinks into our technology roadmap. So this is a really good read just to kind of speak to kind of the efficiencies of our solution. Now, that's my little overview jargon, but I definitely we're going to jump in and see some of the software. The best way to look at this application is as your company's intranet portal. Now, this is branded just like your company. This is an example of one of our customers. They're in the field services industry to do landscaping and tree management. They started off using SharePoint and a bunch of other tools, Zendesk and some things like that. They ditched those applications, and now they are a complete Omnidek shop. Their part-time admin has built processes for every single division of this company. Just to kind of give you some context on how big they are, this is their organizational structure. So they are about 500 employees deep in a couple of different provinces here in the US. So enormous company, enormous use case for us, but appreciate you think, how can they administer all of these different processes inside of the company? There's over 75 different processes. Well, the value of the system and kind of the beauty of this kind of organizational structure is you can manage it with one click just by moving people in and around the organizational structure, which you compare that to, trying to set up username and password management for 13 applications, Active Directory, all of these things that we may do, especially in some of the larger companies. All of that goes away because it's really just the administration of the portal experience. So that's just kind of a little bit of kind of an overview so you can kind of see what that experience looks like. Just to kind of give a little definition here of what you're seeing. The idea here is really from a single page application. These are all the forms that we would build. They could be complex forms, they could be integrated forms that go back to your accounting system, like purchase requisitioning and credit card receipt management. They could also be simple things that maybe today we might be using with Word and DocuSign and maybe a couple of different areas here. Like this is an example. Let's say I wanted to get a contract in place with a new vendor on a new project. Well, in this case, this is for the city construction project. And this is the library of agreements that I have, my non-disclosure agreement, my subcontract, my master services agreement. In this case, I want to get my subcontract agreement in. And this is literally going to pull from templates that I have stored in the system that my attorney might give me for various use case. And then from here, let's say, for example, I want to get rid of section B because we don't need that for this contract. So I can do that. And then when I'm ready, I can effectively just say, just like I would with DocuSign, I need Chris to sign it here. And then I'll countersign it from this standpoint, and I'll just go ahead and hit submit. Well, rather than having to fight that through DocuSign or whatever the case may be, bouncing between emails and everything else, we can actually have a closed or private collaboration on a form just like that. So if I go log in as the person who has routed that contract here, this could be my portal experience. These are the data elements that are shared with me out of my accounting system. We have a really tight integration with Intact, which allows us to share literally the accounting data in dashboard form back to it, but also different forms that I might have access to. But from my inbox, I can actually see that this is that contract that's ready for me to sign. So when I click on it, I can review it. I can collaborate back with the person that was initiating this so we can get those terms right. I can click here to start signing, acknowledge, and then digitally sign it here. And then now I've just effected that without ever having to bounce or leave this system. So this is kind of the example of some of the work processes that you can actually create using this system. Now, this form is kind of more PDF oriented. Sometimes the forms are more data entry. So let's say, for example, if I went into a simple process like becoming a vendor, well, I could actually build a form here and put this on my website. This is a little become a new vendor form. This is where there's some US nomenclature in here with our tax identification numbers, but you'll kind of see this. This is where I can go and as an accountant, if I get a new vendor request or something along those lines, which could also be a form, I could go ahead and just send them a link to this. They don't have to be logged into the portal, and then they can go and fill this out however they need to. So this is an example of kind of more of a web-based form. It's not even filled out through a login. So this is really what allows us to kind of go look at our website. We can go look at all the PDF forms that we may have in circulation. And this is now a tool that we can take and recreate those same questions and answers just in more of a digital, style layout. Now, to speak a little bit about the forms themselves, when we say no code, this is what we mean by that. We can actually go into the library, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel based upon whatever vertical or industry you're in. The forms are applicable. This is actually a nonprofit one. And if you were in construction or development or field services, you get forms that would kind of agree with that particular industry. You could peruse them. Let's say maybe, oh, let's see what they've got for employee forms, the scorecard, IT requests, things that may not even really be going back into an accounting system. You can preview them and simply add them to your library. And these are all free. It's kind of like the more the merrier, frankly. Now, building the forms is also very easy. So let's say, for example, I want to build this form, and maybe I want to build a daily report. Here. This is where I can add columns to the daily report, maybe the date, maybe I want to do a pick list on the project list, and maybe the superintendent. So I can simply just drag and drop, and then once I engage with the question, I can name it, whichever I want. Like in this case, maybe a job, and then I'll select the project list out of the system to point to. So it's very easy to kind of build these questions and answers. We through our training process, we'll generally take someone that works at your company, in about an hour and a half time, we can get them up to speed, build their first couple of processes, and they can really take it and run with it. Now, we also do some other advanced style questions and answers. I'll give you an example here from this perspective. If you guys were using Sage Intacct, I know that's a kind of a big push, this big migration to the cloud. These are questions, these are forms that are actually already pre-built to go to the Sage Intacct platform. So if you are considering one of those moves, I'll give you an example here. Let's say I want to build a timesheet that goes to my Intacct instance. Well, I can simply click here. I can relabel this up here. Maybe I don't call it entity, I call it company. Up here, I can add line items. So I want to actually tag it to a customer, maybe a project, to the task. And then I can come down here and, oh yeah, maybe mark if it's billable or not. And then I can give it a weekly view. And now I just built a weekly timesheet, but within the same canvas, I can also add to it some signature boxes. So it's a very easy system. If you have an idea of how you want to get going or what forms you want to use, this is a really, really slick tool for once you kind of learn how to build forms, it's really repeat as needed. Now, once we build forms, our workflow engine all flows through one single inbox. So this is what we kind of call our cup of coffee screen. So when I get here in the morning, we use Omnidek heavily inside of our system. Our company, when I get here in the morning, I'll review my to-do list. These are things that are waiting on me for review, so I'm up for approval. Let's see if I've got one, maybe here's a new vendor request. This is where I could review that information. I could approve it, hold it, reject it. I could ask Chris, hey, Chris, what do you think about this? And then now we can start having a collaborative conversation, me and the approval group that it's in this workflow. So it's very easy. It's non-threatening in regards to approving things. My in progress means I've already dealt with it, but somebody downstream still has to do their job. And then all items is everything that would ever fall through or flow through this particular process. Now, another really cool tool within the approval are these little icons. So if you can appreciate, when we tie into your accounting system, and we're a Sage partner, so we can tie into multiple different Sage platforms. Our primary focus is on the Intact, that's where all the kind of the advancement is going. But let's say, for example, before I approve this contract, maybe I just want to look and see, you know, what all documentation do we have in place for this project? Well, if I click on it, this is actually going to give me a little peek into the project file, any forms. Like I can say I've got 3 contracts that are in place here already for this project, and I can drill into them and see them. I can also see kind of a chronological order of the activity and even chat with the team about this particular project. I can also do it at a vendor level. So I can see maybe, you know, how did they perform in their last quality assurance report, or okay, here's all the 11 contracts that we've done in place. And if I want to go see the one that we did for Dearborn, I can simply call this up and see if maybe the terms were different. I see an issue with Exhibit A right here. So this is kind of the idea, is that although our workflow and approval looks pretty simplistic, it's a wildly powerful tool, because I have, with one click, ability to drill down to literally even the conversation, not only the file, that for that particular vendor, project, employee, no matter what we're using it for. So especially if you're a developer, you can go literally into the development, the investors file, all of that literally with one click, and it's controlled access. So you don't, if you have security set up, it's out of sight, out of mind. So they don't see the things they can't see, but it's a really wonderful tool from that standpoint. Now, setting up workflows is very easy. So let's say, for example, I'm going to just bring this one in. And let's say, for example, we wanted to set up a workflow. In this case, this one starts with maybe a group of people. So you kind of set, you know, this workflow applies to this crowd, which is just a random group of people, or an organization, or specific users. So you can like layer exceptional workflow on top. So you don't have to have one massive workflow. It makes it very easy to configure. Let's say I have an approval, but you know, I'm going to add a condition node in here that might be maybe a total requested amount greater than a number, or something along those lines, so I can get maybe some conditional routing. And then if we're using Intact, it can literally with one click point and say, this is going to be a vendor create. So I'm going to send that over to Intact. If you aren't using Intact, it's a little bit more of some custom services in regards to getting that data transmitted over to kind of the on-premise platform. So that's one of the big advantages of the Intact system, is that it truly gets you to a point and click in regards to workflow. So you can kind of see, spending a little bit of time training somebody within your team, or obviously the Thrive team is a great team for professional services and consultation, really sitting down and kind of recreating the same form experience that you guys are accustomed to is not a very hard process. Like when we say like the average company uses it for 18 processes, that happens over time because they'll continuously commit to it. But if you can appreciate, it's just another form in the list for whatever forms you have access to. It's just another form circulating in your inbox for review. Now, the last little piece of this is really kind of the file management. So in this case, like, you know, how do I see, you know, what's going on inside of the system? Well, any forms that get submitted in, let me log out, log in as me. They can be effectively monitored by the user. So let's say, for example, these are my favorited reports. So sales orders, monthly expense reports, investor transactions. If I were just to kind of click on this, and we raise capital, so very similar to if you've got some developers on the line that you're looking for this to maybe do some portal experience for your investors. That's actually how we use it internally. This is like all of the transactions. So every time they signed an investment contract with me, or a promissory note, any type of wire transfer or copy of a check if they dropped it off, that's what you're looking at in here. So I've got a big database. But what's nice about it is I can have different views. Maybe I want to see just the investors in B1, or just the or all the investments, but grouped by round. In this case, I can see how much was in the convertible note versus the Series A, or whatever else. And then if I wanted to drill into it, I can click on it, and then I can start having an internal conversation with maybe my administrators, Mary Catherine and Autumn, about this particular process. Maybe I want to drill into James's file and see, you know, hey, when's the last time he invested some money? And okay, so he invested twice, and here's the time, B1A and then the convertible note. So this gives me a really powerful, nice view that I can really just kind of tailor and drag and drop and kick it out to Excel. It's a very easy tool for me to kind of manage. And the same way that I manage the investment round view is also the same way that I manage my board meeting minutes that we publish out to the other investors. So it's a really great tool, if you can appreciate it, because from a single page application, I can initiate a process, I can click and approve and affect a workflow, or I can go self-service myself in Insights. Now, the last thing is actually what we just talked about kind of in the drill down in the inbox, but channels is how we create file management automatically. So in this case, I've got a channel up here already. This is one of our customers, actually that caretaker landscape contractor. This is actually going to go out and pull all of caretakers' information, how many users they have, what their subscription is, any notes about it. This is going to be their entire file, 102 timesheets. So that we've done a lot of custom work with them. They've been around for about 5 or 6 years. They've got a lot of support tickets too from services and training. If I click on their sales orders, I can see every time they bought something from me. And again, not only view it, but also drill in and then start asking questions with the team about it as well. Now, the way that I do this though is at every data point that I'm storing in the company, whether it's a customer or a vendor or a project, I can actually go in and do it. And so if I go to my investors table, this is where I can go look at any investor that I wish to. Let's just see, it's Bernard Ross. And I can see, okay, here's all of Bernard. I can call him. Here's my, just like a CRM system. So maybe if I don't need a full-blown CRM system, this can actually suffice for it. But this gives me all of his activity every time he invested. And then obviously my notes here. And if I want to kind of monitor this because Bernard's considering making a larger investment or something like that, then I can simply add him to my list. And now I'm kind of following that channel's activity just with one click. So this is really kind of the experience that you would have kind of as an employee user, right? I would be logged in, these would be my forms, and so on and so forth. But what makes the system really powerful is that you can build constituent views. So what this is, you'll see the rectangles are the people that work for us, right? Operations, sales and marketing, the product people. But you'll see the circles, these are the people that don't. I have a board member portal, customer portal, interns at the local university that work for me, contractors. The way that I can build portals is really easy. I can simply come in and actually just, let's say, for example, I wanted to build maybe a reseller portal or something along those lines for some partners. I can simply come in here, name it however I wish, and maybe I want to say, hey, book a deal using the forms below. And you can format this however you want. It's got all sorts of different formattings. If I want to maybe make that more of a heading view, I can do that and then type below it. I can add this group, and then whenever I add it, I can simply add forms to it. Maybe this is the new sales log here. And now I've just built the portal that now the vendor or the partner can actually submit their sales order log. I can also give them report access as well as just uploaded files, maybe the last year's audit or some prospectus that I maybe want to share with them on a new development. So to kind of walk through that in kind of a little bit more of an elaborate scenario, I'm going to log out here. I'll log back in. And this is one with a little bit more meat into it. I touched on it just a little bit earlier, but I do want to kind of go through it. This is the ability, if you have Sage Intacct, is that this can actually read dashboards from Sage Intacct and make those available to non-Intacct users. So for developers, maybe I want to see how many contributions have I made in investments into the fund so far this year. Maybe I want a breakdown summary. All of this is completely tailored to, in this case, your Intacct data experience. But this is also where they can do, maybe it's a funding recommendation. Maybe they, like in this case, they want to recommend a new organization for funding, and then that'll send them through a grant making process. Or maybe they need to update their financial information or financial advisor's information. But you see, it's already filled out for me because the portal knows who they are. They're really just answering a few questions and then hitting submit and moving on. So this is a really, really cool tool because you really don't ever think about a portal experience. We really just kind of deal with emails and links and forms and whatever else. this really allows you to kind of think through, okay, well, how do vendors interact with me? Or what do we want that customer to be able to do in regards to maybe their early onboarding experience with satisfaction surveys to maybe support tickets and ongoing stuff that they may need to have access to. It really does kind of free you up to really kind of build anything that you can dream up. And you can do it all in a couple of clicks. And that's hopefully what you can appreciate, is that building the forms, rolling it out. This is, if you know what you're doing, it is about a 15 to 20 minute exercise. And I think the best thing to think about is that idea of this continuous improvement coordinator, where you take somebody who's working for the company now, really good understanding of what's going on in regards to process by process. That person can learn our software and then kind of be sitting in those operational meetings. And now, instead of having to go look for technology to go do it, now they can start building things and populating up the intranet portal. So that's really Omnidek in a nutshell. We have clients using it across multitude of different industries. Some use it for just a handful of things, and that's perfectly fine. It replaces spreadsheets and things of that nature. Some companies will really invest in it as a strategic thing, and then they start looking at kind of like, okay, what's going to be our strategy for technology? Is it going to be to keep buying apps and hopefully don't get too overloaded? Or is this a platform that really we can kind of take under our wing and start trying to carve out as many things as we possibly can? And that company that I mentioned earlier, this Caretaker Landscape, appreciate, they didn't roll this thing out all at once. They went over time. They've continually rolled things out, but they've really kind of taken the idea of continuous improvement as kind of something that they can really build build and invest in, I guess, inside of their company. And this tool really just kind of enables you to do that. So that's all I've got. Lauren, I don't know if you there's any questions or.
Yeah, if anyone online has any questions, feel free to shout out.
I've got a question, Lauren.
Go for it.
So Chris, I did the training a little while ago with yourself and that Sarah organised. And since then I've had some time and played around with the form designer. And this question would be really basic for you, so it's a bit of a dumb question, but aside from drawing out data from Sage Intacct, how do you create your data sets? So if you're looking at something that's pretty basic, like preparing a customer feedback form, and you're asking them to provide like some sort of rating, and a scale could be as simple as strongly disagree all the way through to strongly agree. How do you create that data set so that they can actually click down and select an option?
Yeah, well, we have a form here that's actually, I think it's in the base installation. It's actually in volunteer management, but you can kind of claim it in different ways. It's event evaluation. Okay, so let's take a look at it first, and then I'll kind of show you how you do that. So yeah. In this case, this is an event, but appreciate the data elements here. This is actually a lookup on a self-managed list. Okay, so our system has the ability to tie into an accounting system. So like in Intacct, for example, you have a project list, right? You have employees and vendors and customers. Those are out of the box. Those are already set up when you get it. However, some stuff just doesn't fit in Intacct. Maybe I do events, but I'm not putting those in projects because we don't track them like that, right? Well, in that case, you can simply just create your own data table, okay? So let me kind of finish on this form, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. So in this case, like let's say, for example, that I'm kind of giving a little survey here. So this is just kind of me entering in some questions. Well, it's giving me a scorecard grade up here. So I'm literally getting an event scorecard, right, with some feedback and a signed document. So a couple of things to kind of what go into that form. The first of which is underneath the hood. We call it's really lists, I think, or Smartsheet calls it sheets, but they're just data tables, okay? And this is where, like, I've got an events table here. In this case, this is really just, I can add whatever columns I would put in a spreadsheet. I just put the columns here. So I just did name, description, event date. Maybe that's all I needed, for example. This one's for like a donor advised fund. This is something more in kind of like the nonprofit space. This one's a little bit more elaborate. It's got, you know, the investor's name, the advisor's name, first name, email. It's also got some sensitive information in there, so you can actually create a secure group that they don't see some of that sensitive information. But the long and the short of it is you'll kind of get a little bit of a, once you're done building it, it gives you like this little table grid. And this is designed because you build it to just match your spreadsheet. So in this case, you could actually go build it. You could add rows as you go. So I could just go fill this thing out. So I can just add them one at a time. Or B, I can actually go and import just through here. And as long as my columns match, it'll import that spreadsheet accordingly, right? And kind of a tips and tricks is you can just kick it out to Excel here and then copy your spreadsheet over and re-import it. And that way, you know it's a direct match. But that's kind of the idea. You're kind of getting these tables set accordingly. But if you appreciate the intact ones, especially the synced ones, these are actually already set up for you. So you don't have to do that. So like AP bill or customers or vendors or whatever else, this is literally coming from the accounting system. And this is on like, I think about a 15-minute interval that's coming through there. So back to that form, if I was going to do in the event evaluation, so this is kind of the plumbing of that form, right? Whenever I go to my event, I went to, okay, what pick list do I want? I want the event list. So that's the spreadsheet import that I just did, right? And then, you know, so you can get kind of creative in regards to, okay, well, what all do we want in there? Well, you could match your CRM system. What information do you get on a customer? What information do you have on an investor, right? Or on the development side, right? A particular project, maybe you're not managing that in any other place, but you just want to have a list of your projects, same concept. So in this case, when I build a form, it's date, the pick list of the event. This is actually a scorecard, so you can see it's actually doing math. So it's just doing like, we're just adding up all the questions and then dividing by the number of questions. And that's kind of how you set this up. So it's a pretty simplistic way of kind of like building the form, but you're right, data is kind of an important piece of that. And here's why that is. I can create that spreadsheet through that import, just like we talked about. Mm-hmm. But now I can actually go to channels and I can go into the events. And now this is all the events that I just uploaded. So I've got like this Wigs and Waffles thing. This is a nonprofit. Well, this would be all the event evaluations for it that I remember that all I had to do was build a form and reference the events and it populates. This could be the original request for the event, people's participation in it, maybe signups, volunteer requests, whatever the case may be. So any forms that we want to reference those spreadsheet data, this channel will kind of create a really nice file management solution for that as well. So it's a little bit more of a structured thing. In regards to file management, but it does it automatically. So you just kind of inherit it. As long as you ask the question about, okay, I need a pick list on vendor rather than just like a text box for them to type it in, right? So you just try to create those anchors on the form to give you this view.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. No, thanks for that.
Awesome. Great question, Dee. I've got a couple that have been sent through. Can you create pie charts in channels, Chris?
Okay, so we don't create pie charts on the fly. We do inside of Sage Intacct. We have only because if you can appreciate the questions and answers, we don't know what form you're going to build. So like to us, it's just questions and answers. It doesn't have like rigid context, but the Intacct piece does. We call it those little process extenders. So this one, for example, like this is a my invoices view. So this would show me what's pending, and then this is also showing me what's been paid out of my accounts payable to me as a vendor. So if you're using Intacct, there are some places where we can do pie charts, but I do want to touch on this because it's important. One of the things that kind of everybody would love to use Microsoft because they have Power BI, Office 365. They've got some things already built there. Putting them all together to create a cohesive system like that, like this, that's kind of the problem. It takes too long. It's very complicated. However, Power BI just needs data, and Power BI is like $9, right? So to add onto your Office 365 subscription. So what a lot of companies will do is they'll take our system and appreciate what you have underneath the hood, kind of going back to that assets list. I have all of the Intacct data here. I also have all of my data that I just build in spreadsheets and stuff like that and importing them. And I have all the form data. So that gives me, which I have an API on the back end of this system, is that now if you were going to use Power BI, you now have one system to go to get any piece of information that you want to get out, rather than having to go and try to connect a bunch of different applications to do it. So it really is one of those things where, like, whether or not you wanted to use Tableau or Power BI or some other, whatever your flavor of BI tool is, you can actually use our forms to kind of go and build and capture all the data necessary for your analytic reports. And rather than us trying to build a version of Power BI, we wouldn't be able to do that, obviously, because Microsoft is so big. It's better for us to give you the horsepower of Power BI, but our system kind of is the workflow alternative to form and flow and automate and all the things that kind of make Microsoft a little clunky.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, how's it priced?
Yeah, so it's really, the only wrinkle is that intact pricing is a little bit different. It's all kind of based in the wash, but it's unlimited forms, and the only users that you have to worry about are the users that work for you. So for example, we have a client that has 18,000 vendors, and they submit vendor onboarding forms, and then they update their information, and they also submit their invoices in for payment. They do not pay for any of those licenses. They have about 12 people, though, in accounting that deal with those forms on a daily basis. So their subscription, I think, is like an under 25 subscription. So the subscriptions can start as little as 5 users at around $250 a month, and then they can scale up accordingly based on how many users. And then we'll also do kind of some, like if you're a larger organization, more of some enterprise pricing as well. It's also, we're pretty flexible in regards to, if you're just going to use it for one thing, we can we can make the pricing match the requirement. So, like, for example, if you saw, hey, we'd love to just onboard vendors, and that's pretty easy, and maybe do a purchase request or something like that, right? Well, then what we would generally do is that's a good place to start. So we would take that first year and really discount it so that it would match that value proposition, and then really try to look at it year over year and say, hey, look, can we show you the extra value? Generally speaking, 50% of our customers within the first 6 months expand globally. So their entire organization will start using the platform. It just speaks to the ease of that. Also, when we're onboarding, we kind of show you how to build forms. We'll take the first couple with you, and then we'll tell you to kind of go pull your library in. You'll go to the library and start getting ideas when you kind of flip through some of these and say, oh man, we could use it for this. Yes, you don't pay for these. So the idea here really is that when we come into our second training meeting, generally speaking, you've already got 5 or 6 other things you want to do with it, and we encourage that, because obviously, it's a tremendously valuable tool. But the more you use it, the more valuable channels becomes, because that becomes almost like the entire corporate file for vendors and for projects and for contracts and whatever else. So pretty flexible, but our pricing is generally around the same price that you would have for any other third-party application, but we could probably make the case of eliminating up to 50% of the total software as a service platforms that you're using. So you may still have that really robust payroll system or that project management system that the guys love. The best way of looking at this tool is that it starts kind of from the outside working in. Is that the goal of it is that we want you to have the best of breed applications that are super important to your enterprise, but for everything else, it's generally a form and some people approving it. Those are perfect candidate workflows for a tool like this.
Awesome, thanks for that. Are you integrated to Sage CRE?
Correct. We have more Sage CRE customers than we do Intact clients, just because of the nature of Intact kind of getting into construction a little bit later. But we do integrate with Sage 100 and 300. The integration components are a little bit more manual, just because Sage 300, 100 are on-premise. Yep. So we have to set up kind of integration routines that'll go sync the data down, and then getting the data back into them is really, Sage kind of it doesn't lock it down, but there's a finite amount of places that you can import back in. So like let's take job cost module in Sage 300. I can send in subcontracts, change orders, and POs, right? So it's kind of limited. It's a TXT file. I just spit it out when somebody on premise goes and hits click, and then we can run a macro and it sucks it in, and that's the integration. On the Intact side, it's more literally you would just put in your company ID and your credentials, and then it just goes and does it automatically. So we like this. It's a much simpler as far as the integration goes, but we do integrate with the CRE application. One thing that some of our customers are starting to do, especially as Intact for construction is starting to mature itself, which let's say 2 or 3 years ago it wasn't there. They're now, appreciate like that caretaker landscape, they're about to move to Intact. Well, all we do is unplug from the old CRE version and plug into the new, and there is no disruption in workflow. So it's a tremendously valuable tool. The only thing that's going to change is that some of the things that they weren't able to integrate with currently in the current version, now they can a little bit easier around like project creates, customer creates, some more robust stuff on sales orders, things like that. So it's a great tool because they're not bringing, like if you think about if you were going to move from CRE to Intact, you'd have to bring into account, okay, are we using TimberScan? Are we using some payroll systems and time card systems, whatever? You'd have to figure out what's going to make the move with you and what you can leave behind. Our solution's a really great tool to kind of help you kind of consolidate prior to migration. It just kind of cleans up that implementation and also simplifies the implementation too, because sometimes you have to like hijack Intact and use its flexibility to kind of maybe help you account for certain things. In our system, we give you the freedom to kind of configure any process that you want, and you don't have to necessarily do that in the accounting system. We think ours is a better place for that kind of quirkiness, customer by customer, than the actual GLs and account groups and things like that.
That's awesome. So with Sage CRE, can we do timesheets directly into CRE payroll or mobile purchase orders in CRE?
Yeah, correct. So timesheets is really pretty straightforward. That literally the grid that you enter in timesheets into, that is the import file. However, so you have to like make an Omnidek version of that. So we'll match the import file to your current file. And that can be put on a macro, or you can do that whenever you decide to do payroll. We'll just give you kind of a select all and spit out a file, frankly. Mobile purchase orders is another good thing to do as well. Purchase requisitions with that approval. If you're looking for kind of an ROI as well, invoice routing reduction is a huge deal with implementing a purchase requisition, right? So what ends up happening, especially if you might be using like a tool like TimberScan or something like that, well, you can have a purchase requisition fully coded in our system and approved, and then we can drop over to TimberScan or drop over to Sage Paperless. So it's literally sitting there for a three-way match as a supporting document. And then if the invoice hits and it matches, you can just approve it and pick up the early pay vendor discount. So we can drastically reduce almost like 50, 60, 70% of the invoices en route because we're already approving the purchase requisition. And you can initiate that from a phone, tablet, desktop, it doesn't matter.
Awesome. Has anybody else got any questions that's online? Doesn't sound like it. Thanks so much, Chris, for showing us through Omnidek today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out and I'll send out the recording soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care.